I'm gonna show you how to do a nice boss for Stream Avatar. If you want to add more boss than just the Pumpkin King, I'll show you that. Alright, so first you have to go in minigame, boss battle, and here it's the basic setting for each boss, so the joint timer, turn timer, pretty self-explanatory here. You have some sound too. This here if you want to enable bots to fill in if there's not enough player. And now custom boss, and here let's create a new boss. Let's call it test. So now that you have your new boss, let's go here and edit. In here, this is all the basic setting for the boss. Let's start by the animation. Let's say you want to add a idle animation. The thing to know about this, your image that you want to use, there must not be any empty space. It must be filled completely with your animation that you need. So you can fill it straight in a straight line. You can fill it vertically up and down, or you can have a sprite sheet, but it must be filled with your image. So let's say I have a idle animation. One frame of the animation is 64 by 64 here by 64. And the animation gets played. And you can change the FPS that you want your animation to play. That's it. This is my animation for idle. Save that. Then I have a hurt animation. This one is just an image. Let's get hurt. I have a death animation, which is, again, just an image. But you don't have to get a real animation. Victory. Let's get victory. The victory is when the boss wins. It's not when the player wins. Death animation is when the player wins. Intro animation, if you want your boss to play a small intro animation when you start, intro. And now, I'll come back to the buff and ability. Then you have health, pretty simple. First turn, this is when the boss will do his first attack. You can leave it at 0, and he's gonna attack first. If you put it at 10, the player will have a lot of time before the boss starts. So maybe if you want your player to be able to buff themselves before, that could be something. Then here you have your different difficulty of the boss. First is the Enrage health percentage. When the boss goes below 50%, he's gonna become Enrage. And this is useful in the ability. Enrage time in seconds. This one I'm not sure how it works, because every time he goes below 50%, he just gets Enrage. But then we have health percentage. It's the percentage of life that this easy boss will have. So if you do 1%, it's gonna be mostly one shot. Then you have damage percent. This is kind of the same thing. If you put it at 1%, the boss will not do much damage compared to normal. The rewards, this is something else. If you want to do custom rewards for your boss, depending on the difficulty, maybe you could give something rare to player that successfully defeat a hard boss. The boss scale is the size of the boss that is going to be in front of the player, and the boss intro scale, it's when it's presented to the player. So if you put that to 2, it's going to be bigger, and if you put that to 3, it might be too big, but you can. And this, it's going to be shown when the intro plays. So boss tutorial. So the first text color, the second text color, intro background 1 and 2, and intro background color, I think it's the color behind the text. All right, now let's look at the ability. So create ability, let's do a simple attack. Continue. Now all of your abilities will appear here, and let's edit this. So the first thing, the turn cost here is the cost that the boss will have to pay in turn after he does the ability. So if you want to have a really big ability which damage all the player and debuff them, maybe you would set this to a high number, maybe 5, so the player have time to recover a bit. If you check run after turn, he's gonna run this ability after he finished his turn. The animation setting, it's the animation of the attack. Let's look at that. Let's say this is my attack animation sheet. This is 64 by 64. Now, this is going to be the attack animation. And let's say that I stop it, and at the third frame, the frame number 3, I want the attack to be launched. I say the action frame is 3. So it's going to play the attack, and at 3, he's going to do the action from this ability. Save that. Okay, and then the other part is the ability conditions. as it says here, all conditions must be true for the ability to run. Otherwise, it will look to see if the next ability can be run. So this is based on the stack of ability you have. Let's come back here. Here, you have one attack. If you have more, it's going to check the first one. If it can run it, it's just going to run the first. It's not going to check the other one. So if you say that the starting cooldown is 5, it's not going to run this ability before the battle has done 5 turns. If it's a big attack that you want to do, you might want to do like 20 turn before it starts, or something like that. So the cooldown is how many turn the boss will wait until this ability condition is valid again. So if I do 5, he's gonna do his ability, and he won't be able to choose this ability for 5 turns. And it's everyone turns, not only the boss turn. Then we have Enrage. So this is with the counter or the health. You can say that if the boss is enraged, he's gonna do a special attack. Or you can also do if he's not enraged. Then you have the chance. This is used with the stack. So let's say you have multiple attack that doesn't have cooldown or it's not need to be enraged. So let's say I do 50 and I would have another attack in my stack here, attack 2, and attack 2 would be 100. So let's say I have attack 2. Now my attack is 50% chance to be chosen. If it's not chosen, it's gonna take attack 2. Then we have the boss health percentage. So you can say that the boss will do a attack if his health is greater than 50% or less than. Pretty simple. Maybe if he's less than 50%, he might try to heal himself. The average player health, this is for every player alive. So if you only have one player, it's going to be the last player health, less than 50%. It's just going to count the health of the remaining alive player. Then we have the group count. Yeah, it says here, ability will not run if there are less than the number of avatars. So maybe you could do a ability that only plays if all players are alive. You could say 7. This is the first thing that is going to be important for your ability, the conditions. And when this is valid, then it's going to go to the next step, which is which target it's going to get. So first, you have the players. If you select players, it's going to be all the players that are still alive. And if you select boss, it's the boss himself. So he could attack or heal himself or buff also. Then the group select is based on the targets that you chose. So if I choose players, right now it's gonna select all players. Since there is nothing here that tells otherwise, let's say I create an action. This is what's gonna happen from this ability. Let's say that the target is front. From all the players that have been picked, the first player that matched these conditions will be the target. So you can say all, and here let's say I do 50 chance. It will run 50% chance on all target. So you might not touch anyone, or you might touch everyone if you're lucky, but 50%, it's most of the time 50% of the player. But it's not 50% of the player. It's 50% on each player. So it's just rolling a dice on each of them. Then if you do high health, it's everyone with the highest health. Maybe if everyone is full, it will select everyone. If you select front and you do 50% chance, it's gonna start from the front and then do the 50% roll until it gets to the last, and then if you make it really low, it might not hit anyone. But 0 seems to be 100. Okay, and then health. So if you do less than 50% health and your target is high health, it's going to get the target in this group. In all player that has less than 50% health, it's gonna pick the one in these player, the one that has the highest one. It's a bit confusing maybe. So if there is a player that has more than 50% life, it's not going to be picked here. Yeah, because this action is applied on the group that you selected. So let's go to the next one. Buff must exist. So you can create buff, like when you apply the focus buff from the priest or the dampen buff for a magic resistance. And also the fire is a buff, even though it's a kind of debuff. But yeah, here you can say that if the player is focus, this attack will only target players that has focus on them. You can also do the same in the reverse. Buff must not exist. So if you do focus here, it will target every player that doesn't have focus. Dampen, this ability will be on player that don't have dampen on them. Alright, so next, selection mode. Simultaneous, this is just gonna do the action every player valid at the same time. And if you do sequential, it's just gonna be one after the other. And repeat animation, it's gonna repeat the attack animation here for each target. And then the action. This action, it's what's gonna happen. For the allow repeats, if you add, let's do duplicate. If you have front and front twice, it's just gonna start from the front. So the first player and the second one. If you allow repeats, it might attack the same first player. So the first player will be hit twice. Okay, so now for the action, edit that. The animation for the action is what's going to be played on the target. So for this one, I have boom. This is like the flame when the player is burning, or the slice effect when it's getting cleaved by the Pumpkin King. That's it. You have everything as the other animation. And yeah, the damage type, physical or magical, this can be affected by some buff. The damage that is going to be applied, so let's say that this attack will do 10 to 30 damage. And it's going to be physical. The projectile, this is what it's going to be shot from the boss. So for this one, I have a projectile image. If you don't want to see any projectile, you can just give it a transparent pixel. It's not going to shoot anything. And the projectile speed, if you want it to be slow or fast. Chat message, if you want this attack to say something in the chat, like for the Pumpkin King, when he skulls at someone, it tells it in the chat. It's like this. This is the part where you add the buff or you remove it. So let's say that you want to remove focus on a player if he gets hit by it. And you can add like the mage, which has the fire attack, or the Pumpkin King that has the fire. You can add it fire to add it. And that's it for the action in the ability. Then let's go look at create buff. So here, let's create a buff. So here, edit. This one is pretty simple. You have the duration of turn that this buff will last. So let's say that this one will last 5 turns. If it's stackable, like the fire from the mage, when you shoot it on the boss, you can stack it. Since it has a duration of 3 turns, you can kind of have 3 fire at the same time. Refresh duration and repeat. The duration would just go back to 5. This part here, unstart. Let's say that you want your buff to have some effect. You edit here. Let's select a buff. This is my buff animation. You just have to click the loop, so this buff will stay on the target for the duration of the buff. And here you can add what this buff is going to do to the target. So let's say you want the player to have physical defense, 100%, you put that there. Or if you want him to have better physical damage, add it there. So the boss could buff himself to be really strong. This could be done like when he gets enraged. The magic defense and damage is the same. Damage type, so this is if you want, when your buff is applied to the target, he gets damage or healed. You can set it here. Then you have a chat message again, and you have the same as the action. You can add another buff when this buff starts, and you can dispel other buff. Let's say you have a healing or damaging buff, and you don't want them to be on at the same time, add them here. Then you have on turn. This is almost the same, but it will be run at each turn of the player. When it's gonna be your turn, and you have this buff, you're gonna get what's in there. So you might get damage or healed. And then you have untick. This is probably the most useful. This one is like the fire from the fire spell. When you are burning, you just get magical damage. If you have the dampen buff, this will be reduced because dampen adds magic defense. And the rest is the same. And then the end. Unend. When the buff ends, this will be applied. This one only has the damage and the rest of it. This could be a death debuff that when the counter is at 0, you just die. So here you could do 1000 damage. So when the buff will end, you'll just get hit by 1000 damage. So at the end of the 5 turn, you die. So that's pretty much it for everything in there. Now let's try to see if we can make some cool ability and buff with that. Alright, let's say you want to do a lifesteal ability. First, we do the attack, which is gonna do damage here, 30 damage, physical damage. We can't really get the real damage it's gonna do. Like if you do 30 to 40 and the damage is 35, you cannot really get this value. So you just have to do with this. And then here at the end, run ability after, I will run the ability heal. And the ability heal is going to be at the bottom of the stack of ability, because you don't want, well, unless you want it to be played by itself, but since it's a lifesteal attack, I don't want it to play itself. So attack 2 is 100% chance, so it should never go to this one. And heal it's just gonna be a attack that does heal 30. When this ability attack will be played, the boss will do his attack. Heal will be played right after, so he's gonna kind of steal life. Then the other thing is the Enrage. This is something when you fight the Pumpkin King, you don't see it when he gets enraged. So this buff enables you to see when he's enraged. Well, all the player will see it. So the only thing you have to do is get this ability at the top of the stack, and the condition to be played is he has to be enraged. It's 100% chance, so it will be played, but you need to add here buff must not exist, so he must not has the buff enrage. This is a buff we'll create, and the action for this is only add buff enraged. That's it. And then you need to create the buff enraged. And this one you can give it a really long duration because he's going to be enraged until he's dead. And on start, you just have to add a animation enraged and loop it infinitely. You can add special effect to his enraged state. Maybe you could heal him each tick if you go in tick, or each time it's his turn, you could do some healing or stuff like that. So when you are fighting the boss and he gets enraged, he will run this ability and buff himself with enrage, which will only display the enraged effect over him. If you set the animation to play on head, it should put it over him. I have a new attack here that is focus steal. It will look to see if focus exists on a player. It will target a random one and launch the attack, and then he will remove focus from the player with the action. This one, dispel. Then after that, it will run the ability get focus, which is at the bottom of the stack. Everything under attack 3. Attack 3 is 100%, so nothing will go under this. Get focus will be played, and this one will target the boss itself, and the action is add buff boss focus. This is a new buff I created, which is here, boss focus, and this focus is lasting 5 turns, and it adds 30% magic defense. And yeah, it plays the animation focus at the feet of the boss. So yeah, that's how you can play with abilities and buff, so you can chain them and have fun with creating creative abilities. So now let me show you the boss I made. I made a boss called Calame, which is myself. And yeah, I just recorded myself with some effect and made a boss with that. I mostly duplicated the Pumpkin King and added a few things. I added the healing buff, so when I get when the boss gets below 50%, when he gets enraged, he will do the heal, which is he will start to heal. It's gonna buff the boss with healing, which runs for 3 turns, and on start it's just starting the animation, and on each tick he will heal between 1 and 20 health points. And I modified the cleave animation from the Pumpkin King, so now he will select 2 random player and he will hit the player with the hand grab, and this do 40 to 60 damage. So that's kind of strong, because instead of hitting 3 target, he will just hit 2. Then he has the fire breath. This is kind of the same. Seed attack also, and I will add the Enrage status later. So yeah, that's it. That's how you do a custom bus in Stream Avatar. I hope I didn't forget anything or misunderstood some information, but if you have anything to add to this, or if you have some interesting attack IDs, just leave them in the comments below. Yeah, I hope you like that. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. If you want some other tutorial, let me know.